Hello guys, it's WesTZK and today we're going to be ranking every Black Ops 1 Zombies weapon from worst to best in a tier list. S tier is going to be your best weapons, F tier is going to be your worst, and basically A to D is basically going to be like, yeah, it's okay, but it's nothing great or it's not that bad. And before I do begin this video, I just want to say I have a bit of a cold, so my voice might sound a little bit weird or a bit off, but I am getting better slowly, so I can record again, which is why I haven't really been uploading very much, because I haven't been able to talk very much without coughing. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. Alright, so starting off with the AK-74U, and I mean, I know quite a few people really like this gun, but me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of it. It is a solid gun, but just not really something which I would take on the high rounds. I mean, it is a solid wall gun, it is really good, so you can keep buying ammo, but I feel like the ammo runs out really fast on this gun now. Black Ops 1 weapons are known for having very little to no ammo, so... And not to mention, Double Tap 1.0 did nothing in terms of high rounds, so... I mean, that could be another factor as to why this gun is just not very good for me. But overall, I would honestly give the AK-74U an A tier. It is a good gun, but not really my kind of weapon. Coming up next, we have the AUG, and this one might upset a few people, but I actually think the AUG is better. I know quite a few people are probably going to get upset about this, they're probably going to leave me a few comments about this, but I mean, the AUG, it has more ammo than the AK-74U. You don't have to keep constantly going back to the wall gun just to buy ammo. Although, the AUG isn't a wall gun weapon, so you can't keep infinitely buying ammo. But it is actually quite a solid weapon. In fact, I would honestly say it's better. For me personally, I feel like it does more damage, but it's not crazy in terms of damage. I'd say it just does slightly better than the AK-74U. Also, not to mention it has a shotgun attachment, so you can basically shotgun Zeds, but the shotgun, it doesn't really do as much as the assault rifle mode, so I don't really use the shotgun very much, but it is overall quite a solid weapon. Now, coming up next, this image, it doesn't look the best, but I think that's a Bowie knife or something. I'm going to assume this is the Bowie knife. I'm going to put it in C tier. The Bowie knife, it is good. It is better than the original knife you start off with. However, one big issue is it sort of drops off at round 10. After that, you're going to be killing zombies with 2 hits, and then at round 20, it's going to be like 3. And it's just not going to be that good, to be honest. It is better than the starting knife, but it only really goes up to round 10 and then it starts to drop off a little bit. Next up we have the China Lake, and yeah, this thing, it's just an F tier. I feel like it just shoots so slowly, you aim so slowly, you don't have very much ammo, it's really weak, does barely any damage, and it causes you splash damage unless you have PhD flopper. There's just so many issues with the China Lake, I just avoid it. Explosive weapons were not very good in Black Ops 1 Zombies. Unless you have PhD flopper, then I suppose this gun can work, but the problem is most of the maps don't have PhD flopper in Black Ops 1, so it is going to be a little bit of a tough time to use. So coming up next, we have the Claymore, and I would give that a D tier, to be honest. It's good for killing large horde of zombies, but when you get to the high rounds, you're just going to start making crawlers, which is just going to get under your feet. It's going to become a pain in the arse, because explosives, they only do a certain amount of damage for a certain amount of time. The higher the round, the less damage they deal, and like I said before, you're just going to start creating crawlers. It's just going to become a massive pain in the ass. So claymores, they aren't really that useful. Coming up next is the Commando, and I quite like this gun. It has a nice rate of fire. It's got quite a good amount of ammo. It does deal some decent damage, but I don't feel like it's really anything too special. It is a good solid weapon, but for me personally, I feel like there's just better weapons you can choose from, such as the Galil. But the Commando, it is actually quite a decent weapon. And I know quite a few people like this weapon, so I'm probably going to upset quite a few people with this choice. But me personally, there is just better weapons like I said before. So coming up next, we have the crossbow. And problem is with the crossbow, it is really bad at the beginning. It's only really good if you upgrade it, if you pack punch it, because what happens is when you pack punch the crossbow, it actually has a monkey bomb effect, meaning all Zeds will target that arrow which you just shot and then they'll blow up. So it's really good on high rounds because it gets you out of a sticky situation, but I'll have to give it a B tier. Like, it's okay and all, but there's a real lack of ammo with this weapon, and it's not really very good until you pack punch it. But the fact that you have to pack punch it just for it to be good, it just goes to show there's just better choices basically. There's better weapons that you can go for. So coming up next, we have the CZ75, and I think a C tier is generous enough for this weapon. It's actually not a bad pistol, but it's not really a high rounds weapon, but it is really good for lower rounds. So I mean, I'm going to move it down to D tier actually. I feel like it is more of like a starting weapon, and then when you get to the higher rounds you can get better weapons. But the CZ75, it does have a lot of ammo. It is actually quite a good damage dealing weapon until you get to about round 20, which like I said before, you might want to switch weapons. It has loads of ammo, good damage, but yeah, then again, it's only really good for low rounds. So coming up next, we have the Matryoshka dolls, or however you pronounce it. These are quite a good special grenade. They're pretty good at killing hordes of zombies, but the only issue is you only get a limited amount of these. You don't really get a lot. And in terms of damage, I don't feel like they're very good. Unlike the Gersh device or the monkey bomb, I would still much rather have like the Gersh device or another special grenade, but they are still quite effective. So I'd give them about an A tier. Alright, so next up on the list we have the FAMAS. I mean, honestly, I would give it a B tier, because although it has a high rate of fire, I just feel like the FAMAS doesn't do as much damage as the Commando or the AK-74U. If it had loads of ammo, then I probably would put it in A tier, but due to the lack of ammo, again, it doesn't really perform that well. Coming up next, we have the FAL, which, I mean, I don't really use the FAL very much on Black Ops 1. I'm going to put it in C tier. Like, it's an okay weapon. I feel like it's one of those guns which you just use to set up on the map and then you switch out for something better. But then again, in my opinion, there's just better weapons you can choose from, such as the Commando, the AK-74U, the Galil. So, I mean, it is a good starting weapon, but there is just better stuff you can choose from. So coming up next, we have the regular grenade, the frag grenade. I would honestly give them an F tier, to be honest. No matter how many grenades you throw at zombies, you won't be able to kill a whole horde of them. And you're just going to start making crawlers, which is going to get really annoying. Not to mention, these grenades don't stick to one area, meaning they can roll around, so they can possibly hit you back, because they can bounce off something and go back towards you. They can be quite dangerous if you don't throw them correctly. Coming up next, we have the G11. And you see, the G11, I don't use this gun very much either. It's a bit like the FAL. I sort of use it like once or twice and then I never really use it. I don't know. I'm going to put the G11 in C tier. For me, the G11 has always been like an awkward weapon to use, and I've never really liked this thing. Something I don't really like about it is its burst fire rate. I'm more of like an assault rifle person. I don't really like the scope on it either. And the overall design of the weapon, it just looks really odd. It literally looks like a Minecraft gun for some reason. It is a really good starting weapon. Just like the FAL, you can use it to set up on any map. And as much as I avoid using this gun, I only use it really if like I don't have any other choice. But the G11 is a weapon which I will swap out in higher rounds just for something better. And speaking of swapping out weapons, the Galil is an absolute S tier weapon. I would honestly swap these two weapons out for the Galil. The Galil is honestly one of the best, if not the best, assault rifle in Black Ops 1. The Galil has loads of ammo, it's got a high rate of fire, it's got really good damage, and it does still kill quite well into the 20s and the 30s, unlike other weapons where it begins to drop off. So next up on the list we have the Gersh device, and honestly this special grenade is an absolute lifesaver. It basically works like a monkey bomb sort of thing because all the zombies go towards it, and it's such a life-saving grenade because it basically gets you out of any bad situation. The only problem is though is the Gersh device, it's not available on most of the Black Ops 1 Zombies maps. I'm pretty sure the only maps it's on is Ascension and Moon, but I'm not too sure. Alright, so coming up next we have the HK21, and honestly this is one of my favourite Black Ops 1 Zombies weapons. It's got loads of ammo, it can easily kill hordes of enemies. However, the only issue with the HK21 is you do kind of need double tap for it to be effective. Although the fire rate on the weapon is quite good, it is a little bit slow, so double tap 1.0 would be quite useful if you were going to use this thing. But when Pack-a-Punch, this gun is an absolute beast. It can absolutely rip through Zeds. I've basically used this on like round 30 and it still kills zombies quite well. Coming up next we have the HS21, and you see, I'm going to have to give this a D tier. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad weapon, but it just feels really underwhelming. It doesn't really feel like it does that much damage. It feels extremely weak even on like medium and low rounds. And it doesn't really have that much ammo either, meaning you're going to struggle quite a lot. And there's just better weapons to choose from. Coming up next we have the Law, Breaking the Law. And this weapon does break the laws of zombies because it's literal trash. It feels really sluggish, it's just a pain in the ass to move around with. It also doesn't have very much ammo, and you're just going to start creating lots of crawlers with this thing, which is just going to get under your feet and kill you. So as good as this weapon is, it's just not really that great. Coming up next is the M14. I would say the M14 is actually quite a solid weapon. It's not very good on high rounds, but is a really good starting weapon. Not to mention it is a wall gun for only 500 points, so starting up on a zombies map would be really good with this gun. Ammo is quite cheap. It has lots of ammo. It does quite good damage as well. Coming up next we have the M16, and I don't really find myself using this gun very much, but I mean, I'd say it's a solid C tier. It is a wall gun. I think it's about 1200 points. It's a burst fighter assault rifle. It has okay ammo, but not really very much. You probably find yourself burning through it very quickly unless you conserve it properly. But yeah, the M16, it's not really a wall gun which I pick up very often in Black Ops 1 Zombies. I normally avoid it because there's just better stuff in the mystery box. But overall, I would say it's a solid weapon. Coming up next, we have the starting 1911 pistol. I mean, I'm stuck between D and F tier. I want to give it an F tier, but at the same time, you can upgrade it to the Mustang and Sally, which does quite a lot of damage. The 1911 is a good pistol, but it does drop off very fast. Even on round 7, you kind of struggle with it. Unless you Pack-a-Punch the 1911, it's not really going to be a very good weapon. Because when you have this thing Pack-a-Punched, you fire explosive shots, which is cool. It does damage Zeds quite well. It is better than the other explosive weapons, but At the same time, you're going to start making crawlers, so, and not to mention if you don't have PhD Flopper, it's going to become a pain in the ass because you're going to end up hurting yourself. Next up is the Monkey Bomb, and Monkey Bomb is a definite S tier. This thing has saved me so many times in zombies. All you gotta do is throw it and the zombies will all run towards it. And although it isn't as strong and effective as the Gersh device, it does still do quite decent damage. On high rounds though, I feel like the Monkey Bomb, it doesn't really kill very many zombies or does that much damage. It is still good at getting out of a tight situation, or if you end up getting stuck, you need a bit of a breather. Coming up next is the MP40, and this is a definite S tier. The MP40 is honestly one of the best wall guns in COD Zombies. I'm not sure about the other maps, but you can get it off the wall in Kino the Toten, which you can upgrade. It's only 1000 points off the wall, which is quite cheap. Although it doesn't have the most ammo in the world, it is really good at damaging zombies. And you can keep rebuying ammo for pretty cheap, for about 500. And the upgrades just make the weapon even better, it gets stronger. Coming up next, we have the MP5K, I think it is. And honestly, I'd have to give it a D tier. It isn't a bad weapon, but it has very little to no ammo. Although it is a wall gun which you can pick up, it just doesn't have that much ammo. You're going to find yourself having to keep constantly restocking it. Doesn't really do that much damage into the higher rounds. So as good as this thing is, it just has a lack of ammo and a lack of damage really. It would be a weapon that you would use to start up on the zombies map, not really something that you would use in the higher rounds. And speaking of this, the MPL, it suffers from the exact same issues. A real lack of ammo and a real lack of damage. Although it is a wall gun which you can use to refill ammo, it just doesn't really do that much damage, to be honest. I normally avoid this because it's just underwhelming compared to the other weapons. Coming up next is the Olympia, and I would give this a C tier. The Olympia is another solid weapon to use, although just like the M14, it is mostly used for just starting up on the zombies map. Not really a high rounds weapon, although it does have quite a lot of ammo. It is quite effective at killing large groups of zombies. I just wouldn't really use it. There is better weapons which you can pick up. Coming up next is the PM63. Again, it just feels really underwhelming. It just doesn't have that much damage. I'm going to put it in D tier. Doesn't have that much ammo, isn't really that much of a damaging weapon. It's a little bit slow at killing zombies, doesn't have that much ammo. There is just better weapons which you can choose from. Coming up next, we have the Python. I'm going to put it in C tier. It is actually quite a strong weapon. Many people hate on this weapon because it's a pistol, but it is actually kind of strong. Although it's nothing special either because it doesn't really do that much damage. Getting to the high rounds, you don't really find it killing very many zombies, but it is still quite effective. I find it a lot more effective than the CZ75 or the 1911. But then again, it doesn't do that much damage and it does drop off significantly into the higher rounds, although it does have lots of ammo. There is just better choices to go for. And next up on the list, we have the ray gun. I would give the ray gun an A tier. It's not a bad weapon, but it is very weak on high rounds. Getting into the 20s, the 30s, or in the 40s, you're going to start making crawlers with this thing, even if it's pack-punched. It does have a lot of ammo, and it is quite effective, but you do find yourself making crawlers, which can be a bit of a problem. And although the ray gun is quite effective, unlike the other Black Ops 1 guns below it, it still isn't really anything too special. It does still drop off quite significantly. Coming up next is the RPK, and I'm going to put this in A tier. Just like the HK21, the RPK has a lot of ammo. It actually has a faster fire rate than the HK21, making it a lot more effective and possibly better than the HK21. Although for me personally, I feel like the RPK does less damage, but I don't know if that's just me. But either way, just like the HK21, it is very effective, has a high rate of fire, which means you don't need double tap 1.0, and with pack punching, it just makes the weapon even better. And coming up next, we have the Scavenger, which I'm going to put into B tier. It is actually quite a decent wonder weapon, but it drops off at rounds 40. So, I mean, it's not really the best thing in the world, but it is quite effective at killing large groups of zombies because of the blast radius. All you gotta do is shoot once and you basically wiped out like a whole train of zombies. It is really fun, really cool, but on the higher rounds it just sort of drops off a little bit. Coming up next we have the Semtex grenade, which I would put on D tier. It is a lot better than frag grenades because Semtex grenades, they stick to the surface rather than bouncing back at you like a frag grenade and possibly injuring yourself. These things stay on target and they will explode. Although the only issue is Semtex grenades, you can still injure yourself because they're a grenade obviously. But if you have PhD Flopper, then you don't really have anything to worry about. And although they are more effective than frag grenades, they do still make crawlers into the high rounds, which again can get under your feet and possibly annoy you. Coming up next we have the Shrink Ray, which is my favourite wonder weapon in all of Black Ops 1 Zombies. Honestly, this thing right here, the Shrink Ray, is honestly one of the best wonder weapons in the entire game. You can infinitely shrink zombies down and kick them, instantly killing them. Also has a lot of ammo. It's really effective getting out of tight situations. If you end up finding yourself stuck and need a bit of a breather, just run through a horde of zombies with this. So much fun, it's so effective. I just love using this thing on Shangri-La. So coming up next we have the Sickle, and I don't really use the Sickle very much. I found myself not really bothering with it, so I'd probably put it in C tier. It's good and all, but I feel like it's a bit like the Bowie knife, where it just sort of drops off after a certain amount of time. Off the top of my head, the only map which I can think of which has this is Call of the Dead or Ascension. I would probably say that the Sickle is about the same as the Bowie knife. Coming up next we have the Spaz 12, which I'm going to say C because I mean it is kind of good. I find it a lot more effective than the HS10, but it is nothing special to be honest. The shotguns are quite weak in Black Ops 1 Zombies, although the Spaz 12 is quite good. It doesn't really have that much ammo, doesn't have that much damage, and there's just better weapons which you can choose from. Next up we have the Spectre, which put in D tier because this thing is absolutely terrible. Has very little ammo, does literally no damage. You find yourself burning through ammo very quickly. If this was a wall gun, I think it would be a little bit more understandable because you get ammo from the wall, but because this is a box weapon, you're going to run out of ammo quite fast. It's basically just a waste of a gun slot. There is just better stuff you can choose from. Coming up next is the Stakeout. I would put in C tier. It is not a bad shotgun, but just like the Spaz 12, it does suffer from the fact that Black Ops 1 Zombies shotguns are quite weak. They're not really as effective on high rounds, there is just better things you can choose from. I don't pick this gun up very often, but I do use it as a setup on maps sometimes. Now coming up next, we have one of my favourite wonder weapons, the Thunder Gun. I think we all know that this thing is just an S tier. Like this, the Thunder Gun is honestly just an absolute beast of a weapon. You get stuck in a corner, all you have to do is click once and everything in front of you is just gone. It's got a lot of ammo. You don't really need to pack a punch it either. It's still quite effective, and the damage in the weapon is just absolutely insane. It has a massive damage radius, meaning anything in front of it is basically gone. Such a brilliant wonder weapon. However, I can't really say the same thing for the VR11. It isn't really an F tier, but I'd probably put it in about D. Why did they make it so that when you hit a zombie, it only infects one of them? And this thing is meant to work like a monkey bomb, except it's a really crappy monkey bomb because it only attracts like 3 zombies. When you shoot this thing, only 3 zombies will follow the target, the rest of them will keep taunting you, so it's just absolutely useless. Like, why would you have this thing as a weapon slot? It is honestly just one of the worst weapons. Speaking of one of the worst weapons, the Winter's Howl is up next, and I mean, I'm going to give it a C tier. it is better than the VR11. It can actually kill multiple zombies at once, unlike the VR11, but is nowhere as effective as the Thunder Gun. The Winter's Howl drops off in damage very quickly, just like the Ray Gun. In the 20s, you're going to find it very difficult to kill anything with the Winter's Howl, and it's just a giant pain in the ass because it has barely any ammo, the damage is so weak, you end up burning through ammo. Coming up next is the Wunderwaffe, and I'm going to give it a A tier. It's not a perfect wonder weapon, but it is still quite effective. Definitely better than the Ray Gun, because the Wunderwaffe, it doesn't drop off in damage at all. Although the only issues with the Wunderwaffe is that it doesn't kill all of the zombies at once, unlike the Thunder Gun, unlike the Shrink Ray. When you pack punch this thing, you only really chain about 10 zombies at once, and that's it. It doesn't really feel that effective on Black Ops 1. And finally, last but not least, we have the Zap Gun from Moon. In fact, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to put the Zap Gun in S tier. I genuinely cannot think of anything wrong with this wonder weapon. It's got loads of ammo. It's really powerful. It can basically kill large hordes in multiple seconds. It's got multiple fire modes, such as like a Zap Gun. And you can even do like a microwave beam, making turn zombies into popcorn, make them explode. It's a really fun wonder weapon, really strong, has loads of ammo, and is quite effective on Moon. But anyway, this is where I'm going to conclude today's episode. So that's basically that. If you want to make this list for yourself, then I'll leave a link to it in the description. I'm actually in there, but you may as well check out my Discord, because I am trying to grow a community on there. So if you're interested in knowing when I post or when I go live, check out the Discord. But apart from that, I'll see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.